What's going on? Welcome to my definitive review of the MAPerformance Stage 2 kit for the STI. The kit comes with a downpipe, an intake, and an off-the-shelf map to go along with it. In this video, I'm going to offer you my sincere thoughts on the MAPerformance kit. I'm going to go over the components, each component individually, and I'm also going to give you a lot of sound clips so that you know exactly what you're getting if you are considering buying this particular Stage 2 package. Now, if you need help getting these installed, I do have separate installation videos for the downpipe and the intake. So I'll link to those up above and in the video description, so be sure to check those out. One thing that I really do like and appreciate about this particular kit is that it does come with its own off-the-shelf map, so you don't need to get the car tuned, but I'll talk about that momentarily. So let's get going with the review so you get a better look at this thing. Let's first look at the downpipe. Now, I already covered some of this comparison in my installation video, so if you've seen that, feel free to skip ahead. The video is bookmarked. This is the MAPerformance downpipe. It comes with a downpipe to catback gasket, as you can see here, as well as new bolts and a plug for a wideband sensor. And although you don't see it here, it does include a new gasket for the turbo. Up top, you have the aftermarket MAPerformance downpipe, and the stock downpipe is right below it. You can see here the stock downpipe actually has two catalytic converters. It has one right there in the front and one further back right here. If you notice, the MAPerformance only has one high flow catalytic converter that you can see right there. Right below it, you can see a bracket which is in the same location as the stock bracket. So we should be able to use the stock hanger under the car for the installation so that the downpipe is nice and secure, which will reduce any chance of cracking. The upper brackets here are not used by the aftermarket downpipe. Another thing you'll notice at the end here is a portion of flex piping. The flex pipe gives the exhaust system room to move a little bit and absorb movement from the engine or potholes or even direct hits. On the other side, you can see the MAPerformance downpipe has a plug up here, and that's for a wideband sensor. And of course, it has a hole for the stock O2 sensor right there. Let's take a look at the mouth of the downpipe. The flanges on the MAPerformance on both ends are actually 1/2 inch, which is pretty thick compared to the stock thickness. You can see here two separate openings on the MAPerformance. So this design right here, separating the wastegate, is supposed to do away with boost creep. On the stock downpipe, there is just one single opening, and this is solid right here. So there's a pretty big difference in design. The MAPerformance has 3-inch piping versus the stock exhaust, which is 2.5 inches. To go along with the downpipe and get those sweet intake sounds, the kit comes with a dedicated intake. You can see me here unboxing it. Again, check out the install video. It's a very simple design as far as intakes go, with just primarily a very large cone filter and a tube. Here you can see it already installed. The filter element is routed all the way to the wheel well, and since, at least for this particular year, the fog-like bezels have holes that let fresh air in, and since there is a heavy-duty heat shield that keeps at least some of the engine heat away from it, the intake temperature stays at similar levels to the stock intake. All that said, at this level in the modification game, meaning Stage 2 with an off-the-shelf map, this intake is just for sound, and it does provide that whoosh sound when you accelerate that some like and others can do without. If you are pro tuning, doing without this intake will not affect your gains if you install the downpipe alone. Now, if you didn't know, Stage 2 in WRX and STI circles is generally considered just a downpipe. So you can do a downpipe, or you can do downpipe and intake, and that's considered Stage 2 plus. But just installing a downpipe is going to be no good unless you install a tune with it. You have to tune your car if you replace the downpipe on it, because you're replacing a bottleneck and you're considerably flowing more air out. So you have to account for that air that's coming out of your engine. Now, the off-the-shelf map is definitely an improvement over the stock map that comes with a car. However, it is still very conservative because it is an off-the-shelf map. So because of that, you don't need any other further modification to the car to run it. The only thing you need to run it is an otherwise stock car and the downpipe and intake that comes in the kit. Now, that said, you can't use other intakes or downpipes or any other part that requires a tune on its own, like say a front mounted intercooler with the tune, because the tune is made specifically for the car as it is in stock form, and the downpipe and intake working in unison. You can get more out of the downpipe and intake if you pro tune your car, but then you start getting into reliability issues if you're pushing it much more than that without doing other supporting modifications. Now, as a kit, obviously it does come with a tune, but you can get the parts separately if you are getting your car Pro Tune, and you can install whatever parts, if you're getting your car Pro Tune, that you would want with it, because in that case, the Pro Tune that you purchase is going to account for all of those parts working together. But as is, you can only use the parts that come with the kit itself. Now, to go along with that, you're gonna need an access port to install the tune. So you can't just purchase this, you have to have a way to get the tune into the car, and that way is an access port. And to be fair, just about any off-the-shelf map that you could possibly get with any part, it's usually delivered to the car via an access port. So that's an expense that if you don't already have, you should take into account. But the access port is not just to tune the car, it's also gonna allow you to monitor the car after you install the kit for knock. You can make sure that your fuel looks good, that your air-fuel ratio looks good. All that stuff you can monitor easily with the access port, and usually do that after you do any sort of tune to the car afterwards for a week or so at least, to make sure that everything that you installed is playing well with the car. This is about the lowest level stage 2 that you can get. And again, that has a lot to do with the fact that the off-the-shelf map is made to be reliable, and it's made to not require any fueling upgrades or any other upgrades, so it's tuned down considerably. So that's why I say that this is probably the lowest level reliable stage 2 that you can do and still get an improvement over the stock form of the car. Now, as far as the performance goes, it's a blast. Okay, the car pulls hard and it's strong all the way to red line in any gear that you might be in. I've been watching my knock in particular, and I don't get more than negative 2.8, which could easily be attributed to bad gasoline or ghost sounds within the engine. Generally, negative 2.8 is considered safe. Now, you're still going to get 3 drive modes: your Sport Sharp, Sports, and Intelligent. And of course, your Sport Sharp is going to be your most aggressive mode, and it's great. But one thing that I did find pretty odd was that you would expect Intelligent mode to be the least aggressive of the 3 modes, because in stock form, it is the least aggressive of the 3 modes. But in fact, Sports mode is the least aggressive of the 3 modes. And I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if that's just me, or maybe I'm misreading things. But I certainly feel when I go from Sports to Intelligence, I feel the car lurch forward just a little bit. You can definitely feel it, especially when you're accelerating. And not only that, but if you're watching the injector duty cycle on the access port, you can literally see it jump whenever you go from Sports to Intelligent. You can see it go higher, and then higher still going from Intelligent to Sport Sharp, which is what's supposed to happen, but it's supposed to go from Intelligent to Sports to Sport Sharp. That's really not a big deal to me. I usually leave the car on Intelligent modes, and whenever I want to have fun, I put it in Sport Sharp. And just as a side note, since you are replacing the downpipe with a kit, you can use whatever catback you had previously installed or the stock catback with it, and that's because the catback on its own does not require a tune. For example, I'm using the NVIDIA Q300 with a kit, and it sounds great. But I'm going to play sound clips in a second so you can hear for yourself. When I filmed my review of the NVIDIA Q300 catback exhaust, I still had the stock downpipe, and I told you guys that if the exhaust was too low for your taste, that once you installed an aftermarket downpipe, it would get louder and it might just hit that sweet spot. Well, that's exactly what I did, and I want to share with you some sound clips so that you can hear the difference between just installing a catback, in my case the Q300, versus what would be considered a full turbo back exhaust, which I achieved by installing the downpipe along with the Q300. I set my camera's audio to manual mode and turned off any artificial in-camera sound tweaks. If you really want to get an accurate sense of what it sounds like, I would highly recommend watching on a computer that has good speakers with a subwoofer so that you can actually hear the low notes of the exhaust. So that's gonna do it for this video. I hope that I was able to answer all of your questions. Make sure you give me a like if you appreciate the video. I would definitely appreciate a like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing for a lot more content like this, and check out my other videos because I got a lot more WRX and STI content on my channel. So thanks a lot for stopping by. I'll see you next video. Take care.